Hello again, many thanks for joining us. Now, the Minister of Education, Dr. Yaosei Duchum, has announced the release of about 68 million Ghana cedis to cater for the payment of food supplies to the colleges of education. Now, the release comes after the principals of the colleges issued a statement asking the teacher trainees to prepare to take up the full cost of feeding due to the non-payment of feeding grants. Now, the issue of the delay in payment of feeding grants to the colleges of education is just one of the myriad of issues plaguing the colleges. So what are the issues? Well, we've been taking a look at them. Now, CTAC declared a strike on January 6 over failure of government to implement the 2017 to 2020 conditions of service. As agreed, they pressed forward with the strike action despite an order by the National Labour Commission to call it off. Now, CTAC subsequently, after a National Council meeting, suspended the strike on January 17. Now, CENSAC, which is the Colleges of Education Non-Teaching Staff Association, then also called a strike. They called an indefinite strike on Monday, April 11, 2022, over what they termed as the hesitancy of the authorities to act on their calls for better conditions of service. They listed a number of allowances and conditions of service that government has failed to honor. And so the teachers went on strike, then the non-teaching staff followed. But the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, Professor Mohammed Salifu, described the strike as unfair and uncalled for. 4 days later, guess what happened? On 15th April, CENSAC then suspended its strike action for 1 week to make room for further engagement. You recall that in CTAC's case, they also suspended the strike. It wasn't called off. CENSAC also did same, just suspending the strike and not calling it off in order to allow for negotiations. Now, during this period, the teacher associations, the teacher trainees of Ghana, TTAC, lamented the effect of all these actions on students, because if the non-teaching staff are not going to the kitchen to prepare food for them, this would definitely have consequences on the academic work. TTAC then issued a statement discouraging the students from contributing money to help the schools feed them. And you recall, we brought you that story as well. Then we have Prinkoff on April 19, just yesterday, issuing a statement asking teacher trainees to get ready to feed themselves from May 8. And the May 8 action is actually the climax of a number of actions, sort of a withdrawal of meals. So it was going to start with just breakfast and lunch, and then subsequently just lunch only. And then they were going to take up the full cost of feeding eventually. Now, this is because feeding grants to the colleges are in arrears, and teacher trainee allowances are also in arrears for 7 months. And so this is a lot of trouble for the teacher trainees. And amidst all of that, at the colleges, we have issues of infrastructure, which is plaguing them. So these are some of the major issues affecting the colleges of education. But addressing the media today, Dr. Yaosei Duchum said that funds have been released in response to these concerns.
I'm very happy today to inform you that government has released 67,942,652 cedis to colleges of education. I know you may have read the media reports. There were many calls on us to respond to concerns of Prinkoff, and we wanted to take advantage of your presence here to let the country know that the President of the Republic, the Finance Minister, and all those who have worked hard to ensure that various promises made to colleges of education are carried through has once again delivered on their promise. And that is why this amount has been released to colleges of education.
Now, so Prinkoff, in reaction to this statement, we'll bring you their response shortly. Let's speak to Dr. Idrisu Suleiman, who is the Vice Chairman of Prinkoff. He joins us on the line with more on this. First of all, tell us, government has responded to the issues you raised. Is this money enough? Would it suffice? Well, we seem to have issues reaching the Vice Chairman of PRINCOF, Dr. Idrisus Suleiman, to bring us some reaction to this latest issue. But Kwesi Kwarteng speaks for the Education Ministry, and he joins us also via Zoom with more on this. Mr. Kwarteng, this amount of money, it covers how much of the areas which PRINCOF is unhappy about? Well, we seem to have challenges with the line, but let's speak to Professor George Oduro, who is former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. He joins us on the line for a conversation on the number of issues plaguing colleges of education. Now, Professor Oduro, I'm grateful for your time beyond joining this program. The colleges seem to be facing a number of challenges, and a chunk of it appears to be finance related, specifically on the issue of teacher trainee allowances and feeding grants. As for infrastructure, we'll come to that later. But what is your reading of what is happening, and how can it be addressed?
Thank you very much. And I must begin by saying that it's good. It's very encouraging that the Minister of Education has informed the public that government has released some funds to address the issue. But the question is, do you have to wait until PRINCOF threatens or the other bodies threaten before you release money? If you knew you have to release that, why do you have to wait? So it boils down to the issue of planning. You rightly said you would come to the issue of infrastructure, but I think they are linked together. The fact is that students' enrollment in the colleges had outnumbered facilities available. And managing those requires effective planning. Now, you look at the calendar, for instance, level 100 and 300 students reported on campus in January. Level 100 students spent 15 weeks and left. After 6 weeks, level 300 students went home to make up for the level 200 to come in. After 6 weeks, level 200 students also have to go home for level 300 students to return. Then currently we have the level 200s and 300s on campus. And level 400 students have been home since September 2021. All these give an indication that the ministry is aware of the financial challenges needed by the colleges. And this staggering, which I have branded advanced double track in the colleges of education, is a way of dealing with this issue. But I think that planning is the key issue here. Lack of proper planning is the key issue here. But we cannot toil with teacher training because it is the core of the quality education that we want for our children.
So for those who say that some of these issues will definitely have an effect on the quality of the teachers we churn out, it is not exaggerated.
No, it can't be exaggerated. Let me find out. Let's look at it. If you have a situation where level 400 students have to stay at home since September, and they'll be reporting in June, September 2021, and will be reporting in June. How are you assuring quality in such a situation? If you have situations where students will come to school, teacher trainees will come to school, and then spend 6 weeks, and then go home, how are you ensuring quality in those situations? If you have a situation where, because you have not planned, you have not projected to ensure that those level 200 and 300 students on campus would have to get a feeding grant for management of the colleges to see things through, it affects quality. You know, these are the issues. And one serious aspect of it is that tutors of the colleges of education are now being overstretched. They have to work throughout the academic year. And when teachers are not given break, when tutors are not given break, they do not have time to reflect on what they teach, and it has implications for quality.
Very well. Prof,
So
kindly hold the line for
yeah.
me. We've been joined
Okay.
by Kwesi Kwarteng, who is PRO of the Education Ministry. We'll clarify a few things with you, and I'll return to you on the issue of teacher training allowances. Is it time to cancel it? And how should it be done? And when exactly? But Kwesi Kwarteng joins us. He speaks for the Education Ministry. Mr. Kwarteng, the amount of money that has been released, how many months of arrears does it cover?
Okay, good evening, my brother, and a very good evening to your viewers. So, if we look at our arrears that we had, our standing arrears, is for the 2020-2021, sorry, 2020-2021 academic year, and then we're looking at an amount of Ghana 117,942,652. So, if you look at this figure in December last year, that is 2021. An amount of 50 million Ghana cedis was actually paid, which means that government ought to have committed an amount of 67,942,652. That is actually the money that was paid or released today. So those were the outstanding arrears for the 2020-2021 academic year in full.
Okay.
And then that such release were made today.
Very well. So it means that once this amount hits the account, the feeding grant is not in arrears anymore.
Yes. So for the 2020-2021, that is the amount that was in arrears. But of course, if you look at 2021-2022 academic year, that is the ongoing academic year, which is the balance due to pay. So that is not in arrears because even the academic year is still ongoing. But in terms of those that were in arrears, which was the basis for PRINCOF issuing out those press release or press statement, clearly that was 67,942,652.
Okay.
Of which
so when will this hit the account of the colleges? When should they expect it?
So I established contact with the director of GTech, Professor Salifo, and then I am aware that hopefully tomorrow we should have a reflection of such an amounts through the accounts. And of course, I mean, if you know the monies that were paid, you are having the monies having to be divided into two, where half goes to through the student loans trust fund. That is that component which goes to the students directly as part of those that they use for their own basic welfare. And that other half component also goes to the feeding. So hopefully tomorrow, the other ones that they have to go to the student loan trust fund for annual disbursement to the students will be done hopefully tomorrow. And of course, we hope that tomorrow too, we are seeing the other component that is with regards to the arrears for the feeding aspect also goes to the
okay. So I was coming to that. So just for clarity, you're saying that this issue, because I know that the feeding grant is somewhat tied to the teacher trainee allowances as well. There's a certain component that goes to the schools and there's a bit of it that goes to the student. You're saying that once this feeding grant hits the student account, you have put in the measure to make sure that a part of the teacher training allowance is also paid. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So if you look at this one, like I said, cumulatively or in totality, the entire 117,942,000 plus includes that component which goes to the students personally or individually, and that aspect which goes to the schools, or the component that goes to the school for the purposes of feeding. And so there was an outstanding arrears of 67 million plus, which has been paid today. So in terms of the money that has been paid, is going to settle that of the feeding component and that component that also goes individually to students.
So teacher trainees who are listening to you should anticipate that the 7-month allowance that has been in arrears will be paid soon.
I do not want to go into even the debate of the months, because so far as I'm concerned, the briefing I have is that with regards to the number of months that was left is actually 4 months. But if you look at December, payments were made, and December payment was around 50 million. And so, but I mean, the most important thing is that, I mean, the principle is that teachers are going to be paid their allowance due them. With regards to the 2020-2021 academic year, all outstanding arrears.
And you say when can they expect it?
Like I said, we are hoping that tomorrow, as soon as the minister makes a public statement or public declaration that it has been released, what it means is that it's moved from controller. And then GTech is supposed to also make that arrangement where half of such payments go to the various schools, whilst the other half also goes to the students. So in regards to the students, the disbursement is done through the student loan trust fund, which we believe that tomorrow that process will be done. And of course, the other part will also be sent directly to the College of Education. The assurance I have from Professor Salifu of GTech, that is the agency responsible for all tertiary institutions, of which the College of Education falls under them, is that tomorrow, hopefully, we hope that the process will be activated.
Very well. Kwesi Kwarteng, I'm grateful for your time. He speaks for the Education Ministry. We still have Professor Joe with us on the line. Prof, to the issue of teacher trainee allowances, time to end it now?
Thank you very much. I think we need to look at the challenges that we have. And when I first read the release of Brinkhoff, what came to mind was the alternative arrangement that the former Minister of Education, Professor Jainana Opoku-Agyeman, initiated, which in a way was bastardized and then used as a political tool to write onto winning votes. I think that we've gotten to a stage where we need a national stakeholder forum to look at the funding of teacher training colleges of education, and then entire educational system in the country. Because if you do not have the means, you need to plan properly to ensure that you prioritize things.
Very well.
So what I would say is that there is a need for us to have a stakeholder forum and revisit Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman's alternative arrangement. You know, it was twisted to inform the nation that she was proposing cancellation of the teacher trainee allowance, which wasn't the case.
Very well.
She was proposing that there should be a student loan scheme for students, where students can take the loan at an adequate level, so that we can get more students in the colleges of education. Now, because it's tied to the trainee allowances, the quota system is there. You cannot take more students.
It's not true. Which quota system? It's not
well,
true.
Thank you very much, Professor Ojo. Thank you very much. We have to end it here because of time. I'm grateful for your time. That's Professor Ojo. He is a Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast.